Good morning, good morning, good morning. Listen, in a 12-step program, we practice patience. And we practice patience. Why? Because if we practice patience, do the next right thing, we will achieve our goal. So, welcome after a couple minutes delay to day 79 of the Free to Hope presents the 12 steps applied to COVID-19. My name is Edwina B, and you are joining a recovery conversation with me as we learn how to embrace, apply, and practice these 12 steps that are spiritual in nature to COVID-19. I qualify because I've been a part of the Fellowship of Alcoholics Anonymous. And if God wakes me up tomorrow morning on February the 23rd of 2021, we will be celebrating 31 years of this 80 plus old simple program. To God be the glory. And if he continues to wake me up for the next day, we will share with you how back on December the 3rd, I sat before you with COVID-19. Did you see that opening picture? The before and after, as a result of contracting and surviving COVID-19 in November and December of 2020, along with 7 other family members. Listen, I am sharing my transparency, my hope, my wisdom, my lack of judgment, my bad choices, my bad decisions, and how and why I contributed to contracting COVID-19. But the creator of us all breathed life into me this morning, breathed life into you this morning, woke you up this morning, woke me up this morning, and we can breathe. We can smell. We can taste. We can smell. If I didn't say it again, if I said it already, I said it again, right? But because of this COVID-19 back in December and November of 2020, I could not take a full deep breath. I could not swallow. I could not taste to my fullest capacity. And I couldn't breathe to my fullest capacity, and my body felt like a gigantic toothache. So for that, we need to give our Creator homage. I know I do, and my family members do, and you too, because it wasn't the alarm clock who woke you up. It wasn't the birds. It wasn't the trash truck. Our Creator breathed life into you this day, this moment, so that we can rejoice and be glad and make it a happy new day. So, day 79, one day at a time, as a result of contracting and surviving COVID-19, applying these 12 steps that are spiritual in nature, that I've been practicing for close to 31 years, that I didn't practice back in November and December, but because he blessed me to survive, he wanted me to continue to share my experience, my strength, my hope, my wisdom of applying the 12 steps and now applying it to COVID-19. To God be the glory. So let's give him homage. Let's acknowledge and give homage to those who have transitioned from COVID-19, those who are on their dying bed this very second from COVID-19, those who are suffering through COVID-19, those who are intervening on behalf of those with COVID-19, those who have been restored from COVID-19, those of us who are doing the next right thing to prevent us from contracting COVID-19, and yes, those of us who are still in denial, who are still rebellious and defiant and stubborn and selfish and self-centered because they don't believe this COVID-19 is real. So on behalf and essence of the entire human race, because we don't know if you're in the prevention, intervention, or restoration mode of COVID-19. We don't know if you are proactive, reactive, inactive, or being responsible for COVID-19, right? In relation to COVID-19. So therefore, we want to give 30 seconds of moment of silence to our Creator and to the entire human race as we simultaneously combat this COVID-19 and hopefully stop its perpetuation, but only through applying the 12 spiritual recovery principles adopted by Alcoholics Anonymous over 80 plus years ago. I don't represent Alcoholics Anonymous, but I've been a grateful, humble, and proud member for 31 years. Join me for 30 seconds for a moment of silence. Thank you. I just got emotional because the Spirit just touched me and basically said, that's all. Just acknowledge who I am. Just acknowledge that you are here because of me. Just acknowledge me. And I didn't know about a loving and caring God before I got into the 12-step program, but I sure know of a loving and caring God now, in spite of what's going on in the world and in my life. And it just brings me tears of joy just to give him that moment of silence, of recognition, of appreciation, of humility, of just two simple words. Thank you for using two simple words. Help me. And he did. Okay. All right. So we normally give a moment of silence in our 12-step program before or after, or even sometimes during a meeting. And if we apply the same things that we did in the 12-step program, we can apply to COVID-19. So let me get this earring out of here, and we're going to get to stepping. Okay. All right. So I want to acknowledge, first of all, my sponsors who support my cause, who believe in what we are doing here. And I want to share them with you by putting on my mask and how I support them. And so this is my newest sponsor. Let me take these glasses off, right? It's called Crafty Crab. And for my anniversary tomorrow on February the 23rd, I have invited any and all who wants to join me at Crafty Crab Seafood Restaurant in Wilmington, Delaware, where all of the CDC's suggestions and requirements are implemented. So Crafty Crab is one of my latest sponsors. The mask that I had on yesterday was Divine Light, and that's at the bottom of my sponsor list. And that is a drug and alcohol treatment center with supportive housing. And I wear their mask because of their name. Dr. Carl Jung and Dr. Bob and Bill W. realized that people with addiction and alcoholism, the medical and the religious sectors could not help them, and that what we needed was divine intervention, divine providence that ultimately led to divine light. And so I support them and wear them because they parallel what we are talking about today. My other sponsors include Free to Hope, from recovery, emerge empowered to give hope to others, help others prosper equally. Women do haul transportation services. We also have Mr. C's Barbershop, right? We also have Morgan's of Delaware and Lady T at Morgan's of Delaware. And some of the jewelry I wear is by Catherine Butler. So if you want to be a sponsor, please contact me through the information that's on the screen. I also want to credit the resources that I use. An article from Dr. Scott T. Allison back in March of 2020 in Psychology Today states how we can use the wisdom from the 12-step programs, as well as Jason Waller's breakdown of the 12 steps. So I do believe in giving credit to where credit is due, acknowledging those resources as well as my sponsors. Now, what I would like to do is also share with you that as a result of this recovery process, we know that we have been talking about Dr. Scott T. Allison. And so let me share with you some of his information that prompted me to sit in front of you today and have been since April the 1st. Many of you know that I have been doing these podcasts for a while, and it was because of this article by Dr. Scott T. Allison that I read in Psychology Today on March the 31st. And the Spirit prompted me to get in front of this camera on April the 1st, using my experience, strength, and hope and wisdom of a 12-step program to introduce them to you and to remind others about them. So it was this article that prompted me back on April the 1st of 2020 to sit before you to share my experience, my strength, my hope, my wisdom regarding how I learned, embraced, apply, and practice these 12 spiritual principles in my life. The 7 points that he used from an Al-Anon anonymous approach, same 12 steps. 1, letting go of control. 2, patience. 3, keeping the focus on oneself. 4, trust. 5, living in the present. 6, social connections. And 7, being of service to others. And for those who don't know about the 12 steps and who need to be reminded, the original 12-step program was created by Alcoholics Anonymous, and over the years, Gamblers Anonymous was formed, Narcotics Anonymous, Cocaine Anonymous, Workaholics Anonymous, and it goes on for whatever area of concern we are dealing with. And now we are applying it to COVID-19 and creating COVID-19 Anonymous. So the 12 steps are: we admitted we were powerless over COVID-19, that our lives had become unmanageable. 2, came to believe that a power greater than ourselves could restore us to sanity. That only means soundness of mind. 3, made a decision to turn our will and our lives over to the care of God as we understood him. 4, made a searching and fearless more inventory of ourselves. 5, admitted to God, to ourselves, and to another human being the exact nature of our wrongs. 6, were entirely ready to have God remove all these defects of character, which we will probably conclude today of part 8. And we will also share with you the questions posed by Jason Waller. So let's continue with recovery principle number 7. It says, humbly ask him to remove our shortcomings. 8, made a list of all persons we had harmed and became willing to make amends to them all. 9, made direct amends to such people wherever possible, except when to do so will injure them or others, even you. 10, continued to take personal inventory, and when we were wrong, promptly admitted it. 11, sought through prayer and meditation to improve our conscious contact with God as we understood him, praying only for the knowledge of his will for us and the power to carry that out. And 12, having had a spiritual awakening as a result of these steps, we tried to carry this message regarding COVID-19 to others and to practice these principles in all our affairs. And so if you extract Jason Waller's breakdown of all the 12 steps, his narratives, his questions that he contributed to other resources and interjecting his experience, his strength and hope and his wisdom. And now I'm doing the same thing. You will see how these steps are spiritual in nature. Religion has nothing to do with it. Medical has nothing to do with it. It talks about a spiritual transformation by going through a spiritual experience that will bring about a spiritual awakening, right? That will create a psychic change in the way we think, the way we behave, the way we have attitudes, ideas, and actions and choices and decisions, right? Old and existing, challenge them in a spiritual way so that we can have and obtain that psychic change to gain spiritual maturity, as my friend Dr. J. Macklin often says, right? And so the whole purpose of me being delivered from drugs and alcohol 31 years ago, I had to be challenged from a spiritual angle, dealing with this physical condition by addressing my old attitudes, ideas, and behaviors, utilizing the information that's given to me that is spiritual in nature in the form of a fellowship with people just like me in order to have that spiritual experience, brought about a spiritual awakening that caused a spiritual transformation, increased my spiritual maturity. So now I have that psychic change and learning how to apply the spiritual angle for any and all physical conditions. As Donald Lawrence so eloquently says, we are not a natural being having a spiritual experience. We are spiritual beings having and living this natural experience. So with COVID-19, we can utilize and apply these 12 steps that are spiritual in nature to combat and stop the perpetuation of COVID-19's impact, effect, outcomes, and fatalities. So we can be a part of the solution and not a part of the problem. There is a solution, and they are contained in the 12-step programs when we apply the principles from a spiritual nature to COVID-19. Right? So we know that in the 12-step program of Alcoholics Anonymous, it states that some of us must die in order for some of us to live. They say in our fellowship that some of us are constitutionally incapable of being honest with ourselves, right? They say in our fellowship of Alcoholics Anonymous, we can, and we will, we must stay sober and help another alcoholic achieve sobriety. So when we apply to COVID-19, we can, we will, we must stop its perpetuation and devastating outcomes. If we learn, apply, and practice these 12 simple principles and encourage us to practice the CDC's simple suggestions of washing our hands, wearing our masks, social distancing, contact tracing, right? Getting tested and getting vaccinated. Are you from Missouri? Well, let me show you when I got my vaccination shot, okay? Listen, I'm transparent, so let me show you. I'm waiting to be contacted to get my booster shot in a couple more weeks, but listen, if this needle is going to help decrease the severity of the symptoms of COVID-19, then guess what? I did and I will help promote the benefit of taking the vaccine shot. Yes. And so we are going to increase the possibility of sharing this information so that you can do your own research, do your own evaluation, analyze, ask as many questions as you want, because I have learned that the vaccine shot only decreases the severity of the symptoms should I contract COVID-19 again, which I don't plan to, right? But when I look at how I suffered and my 2-year-old grandson suffered, I don't want me to go through that, and I definitely don't want my grandson to go through that. And compared to some cases, our symptoms were light. But if this vaccine is to be used only to decrease the severity of the symptoms, thereby decrease the possibility of me being hospitalized and decrease the possibility of me dying, then I am taking the vaccine shot. I did and will get my booster shot. And I'm going to encourage you to do the same thing, because I was like you regarding COVID-19. Didn't believe it. It's a hoax. It's out there. It's those people along with the vaccine. They trying to kill us off. They trying to do this. I ain't taking the vaccine, but guess what? When that COVID-19 hit me and my family, I became a believer, right? And when I had those symptoms and compared to the outcome of others, yes, I'm going to do my research, ask all kinds of questions so that I can be informed instead of going on hearsay, myth, right? All that other stuff. I want to live. I want to contribute to my grandchildren living, my family members living. What you see now is a product of my culture. I'm in touch with my culture now, because when I contracted COVID-19, we know that in the African American population and other minority groups, guess what? We're not getting the same treatment. We're not getting the same information. Well, guess what? You and I can change that. And so when we do it for ourselves, our family, our culture, our community, our city, our state, our country, simultaneously around the world, we can, we will, we must stop the perpetuation of COVID-19, particularly in our environment. All right. And so please educate yourself, get the information, and allow this recovery conversation to inspire you to get in touch with the 12 steps and to practice these CDC simple suggestions. Okay. So let's go on with our conversation, and let's go to the next slide, which is giving you an overview of what we have done so far. And I ask you to definitely go with Jason Waller, Jason, right? His information regarding COVID-19, and also to have you understand what we've been doing so far. So recovery principle number 1, admitted we were powerless over COVID-19, that our lives have become unmanageable. This step needs to be taken 100%. Total acceptance without any reservations. 2, came to believe that a power or powers greater than ourselves could restore us to sanity. Only means soundness of mind. Taking the CDC suggestions as a power greater than you, the tangible evidence that's before you as a power greater than you, experiences of others expressed in groups as a power greater than you, and ultimately, you're my higher power. Our higher power knows the beginning, the middle, and the end of this pandemic. So those are the only power or powers that can restore us to soundness of mind and making the right decisions and doing the next right thing to combat this COVID-19. 3, made a decision to turn our will and our lives over to the care of God as we understood him. Don't let the God word distract you or delay you from getting the help that's available. Do your own research. Create a higher power of your own that's loving and caring. So if that power or powers greater than you are working for your good and in your best interest, why wouldn't you keep making that decision to turn our will and our lives over, particularly if it's going to save us from the devastating outcome of COVID-19 as well as our loved ones, okay? So let's go to the next one, which is recovery principle number 4. This is the one that we have been highlighting a lot because it talks about those character defects and shortcomings that we acknowledged and became aware of in our searching and fearless more inventory. When, where, and how were your character defects formulated? Going back as far as you can. Feelings of selfishness, character defects like selfishness, self-centeredness, defiance, stubbornness, egotistical, prideful. Where and how were those character defects formulated? Because we know we were given God-given instincts that have since far exceeded their intended purpose. And 5, we admitted to God, to ourselves, and to another human being the exact nature of our wrongs. So I extended myself to you. If you want to do your 4th step with me, I'm all about confidentiality. I'm all about helping me get to the exact nature of those character defects so that we can be set free from recovery, emerge empowered to do what? To give hope to others, help others prosper equally. So now that you have the overview, and y'all need to know that repetition in a 12-step program is essential and is required, because most of us need to be reminded. Some of us are new to the program, and some of us need to go to the next level. So when I did and presented you my character defects of being defiant, of being rebellious, COVID-19 for granted, guess what? I had a resentment against COVID-19. And that resentment was camouflaged by the character defect of anger. That was camouflaged by the character defect of uncertainty, right? Confusion, frustration, disbelief, and ultimately the character defect of fear. I had a resentment against myself, the way I reacted and responded or didn't respond to COVID-19, right? That character defect of resentment was camouflaged by the character defect of stupidity. That was camouflaged by defiance, rebellion, selfishness, self-centeredness, regrets, remorse, and ultimately fear. So in a 12-step program, we learned that we used to run from fear, forget everything and run. But we learn in the Recovery Principle program that the fear can stand for a positive and spiritual acronym, and that says to face everything and recover. All right. And so we're now embarking on part 8 of Recovery Principle number 6, where it says, once we have identified those character defects, once we have gotten to the exact nature, are we going to present ourselves like an onion, right? Like that iceberg that's partially above the water, but majority of them are submerged under the water. And so when we present ourselves like an onion, we're saying to our higher power, those powers greater than us, right? That power greater than us, right? Called God, your higher power, the creator, right? That we are entirely ready to have all our character defects removed, particularly if it's going to save my life and save the lives of my lovers and possibly save your life from the devastating impact, outcome, fatalities of COVID-19. Wouldn't you want any and everything of your character that's defected to be removed? If you don't, you need to ask, why are you so selfish? Why am I so self-centered? Why are you so prideful? Why am I so egotistical that I would rather save my face than to save my behind? Are you kidding me? Well, it took for me to contract COVID-19, see the members of my family suffer through it. I became a believer, and I wanted to save my behind and my children, grandchildren's behind. And guess what? I want to even save yours. And so I need to be entirely ready to have God remove any and everything that stands in the way from preventing us from making sound decisions. Oh, yeah, listen, yesterday, let me tell you this. Yesterday, we had a family gathering for one of my grandchildren. Guess who wore masks throughout the time? I did. My grandchildren did, right? When we inquired who was coming, we asked what their situation was. We did our homework. A family gathering is nice, right? And it was a close quarter, so there wasn't a whole lot of social distancing, right? And the grandmother was able to allow so many people to come in at different times, right? But you better believe me and my grandchildren, we wore our masks the whole entire time. I know I did, okay, except for when it was time to eat. I dropped it down, put it back on after I ate. But making sound decisions because I didn't want to succumb to contracting COVID-19 again or infecting my grandchildren, all right? And so the benefit of the sixth step is stressed with a quote by Charles Du Bois. He says, the important thing is this, right? Now think about it. To be able at any moment to sacrifice what we are for what we could become. Did you hear that? Please marinate on that. Try to see the spiritual angle that this is offering. To be able, talking about the sixth step, to be able at any moment to sacrifice what we are for what we could become. And so, even though we were around family members yesterday, I could have very well let my guard down. I could have very well again took COVID-19 for granted, assuming this, assuming that. Hell no. No. I was not willing to sacrifice a moment of insanity, right? A moment of a bad decision, a moment of a bad choice. I was not willing to sacrifice that for COVID-19. I want to live. I want my grandchildren to live. And so I needed to have and stay entirely ready to be restored to sanity, to use common sense, right? To not take this thing for granted, to not let my guard down. Because any moment you let your guard down, bam, it gets you. And that's the same thing we learned in Alcoholics Anonymous. Yes, If we don't continue to practice these principles in all our affairs to the best of our ability at all times, the enemy is waiting to take captive of us again. And I refuse to tell God to kiss my behind and go back to drinking and drugging. And I refuse to tell God to kiss my behind after allowing me and my family members to survive COVID-19. No, I will not. So I will sacrifice whatever I need to do for what I was to what I could become. And that's why I'm saying these steps are spiritual in nature, because it gets to the core of our humanness. But we have to remember, yes, we are twofold. We are human beings, right? But we are also spiritual. And when we apply these 12 spiritual principles, learn them, evaluate them, dissect them, right? Analyze them, apply them, and practice them, we will learn to use that to address any and all things on this physical plane and any and all physical conditions. But now from a spiritual angle, it ain't about saving face, it's about saving our behinds. Okay, so let's go to our next slide and continue this conversation. Now, we know that we all have some character defects. If you need to be reminded, here go a few of them, right? And you could probably name some of them yourself. All human beings are ill to some extent. All human beings suffer from these deadly sins. All human beings are ill to some extent. Did you hear me? There are no exceptions. Every human being is plagued with something. There is no perfect human being on this earth. So that means we are all ill to some extent. Different ways, different shapes, different forms, different categories, but the main and the main and essential denominator is ill. We are all defected in some way, shape, form, or fashion. Yes, we are. To some degrees, less in others and more in others, okay? And so when we think about the 7 deadly sins, right? Pride, greed, lust, envy, gluttony, wrath, sloth, minds, anger, resentment, dishonesty, defiance, rebellion. What are some of your character defects? And the question becomes, why are we so fearful to look at ourselves and get to the exact nature so that we can become what we were destined to be, so that we can become what we were born to do, so that we can live on purpose, all right? So let's go to the questions that we started yesterday. And we know with Jason Waller how he's able to bring up some of these questions for us to engage and think about what the question is saying and challenge us. Because oftentimes, if you're like me, I don't get a whole lot of reading. I don't get a whole lot of comprehension with reading sometimes. I hear what you're saying, but I'm not comprehending. But if you ask me a question, then I can get a better understanding of what you're trying to say, what you're trying to convey, okay? So Jason Waller so eloquently collecting resources from other places, interjecting his own experience, strength, and hope, poses questions for each and every step, which is why I suggest you go to jasonwaller.com and extract all the breakdowns of all the 12 steps. So here are the questions that he posed, and we went over a few yesterday. What are your fears about doing a 6th step, right? We talked about that. So go back to my podcast for yesterday or the day before, and not just hear, but listen. We went into depth about it. We also answered the question, what does it mean that a higher power can remove your character defects, right? So we know that it's a power greater than us that created us, gave us natural instinct, and therefore know which natural instincts have become defective, and we need to be responsible and becoming entirely ready to have that power greater than us remove any and all parts of our character that is defected. Does that make sense? Our responsibility where we left off yesterday was don't you want to know why you are rebellious or defiant or lustful? Why you sometimes lie? Why you sometimes cheat? Why you are so fearful? Why you are an introvert? Don't you want to know how you became the way you became? Don't you want to know how those attitudes, ideas, behaviors, decisions, choices were formulated? How you became who you are? Don't you want to know? And ask yourself, have you achieved your fullest potential, not on a physical plane, but a spiritual plane? Or are you like me still looking for man's satisfaction, man's approval, when man did not create us, right? And so we were put on this earth to serve in some capacity. And through our life journey, we are all going through this knee-bowing experience called COVID-19, but it's not the first pandemic, nor will it be the last that man go through. So through our knee-bowing experience that is happening simultaneously and collectively, all of us get to ask ourselves, not what's wrong with us, not what's wrong with the world, but what happened to us? What happened to the world? And if we start with ourselves, then we will get the answers. But we have to be honest. Honesty, open-mindedness, and willingness is the how of a 12-step program. We need to be thoroughly honest as soon as possible. The sooner I'm honest with myself, the sooner I can get better. The sooner I'm honest with myself, the sooner I can get honest with you. the sooner I become more open-minded with myself, with new information, spiritual tools to use, the sooner I can relay that information to you and encourage you to become open-minded instead of having that my way or no way. No. Open-mindedness. People often say, I know what I'm doing. Okay. So there's a question that we ask in the 12-step program. If you think you know everything, if nobody can tell you nothing, then if we ask you this question, what would the answer be? The question is, if you were missing just a little piece of the puzzle, if you were missing just a little bit more information, is there a possibility you could be wrong? Yes, you could. Yes. I've been wrong a lot of times. I thought I knew me. Y'all don't know me. But it was those predecessors who said, well, since you think we don't know you, then you tell us about you. What happens every time you picked up a drink or a drug? And let me apply it to COVID-19. What happens every time you didn't wash your hands? You didn't wear a mask. You didn't social distance. You subject yourself to contracting, and you did COVID-19, and you infected other family members. So how smart are you really? And then willingness. We can have all the honesty in the world. We can become open-minded to as wide as the ocean. But if we are not willing to utilize the help that we ask for, that we need, and ultimately we should want, if we're not willing to use them, then what good is it? What good is it? And that's why when he asked that question, what is your responsibility to become willing to be entirely ready to have this power greater than us to remove any and all things from our psychic mind, from our stubbornness, our defiance, our rebelliousness, our ego, our pride, that feeling of being invincible, removed. So that we take this COVID-19 seriously. They said over 500,000, 500,000 people have succumbed to the death of COVID-19. And that's just reported. Oh my God. I need to take a drink, a coffee. Woo. I can breathe. I can smell. I can taste, I can see, I can hear, but I need to listen. We need to listen, and we need to become willing to be responsible for our actions and our decisions. And here this step says, let me present myself like that onion to this higher power to remove any and all character defects that he knows all of them. We only know some of them, including the ones we like and we enjoy. Remove them. Just the fact the word defect should be enough to want you to have them removed. All right. So being responsible. All right. So question number 4, which is our new one for today. Do you believe you can change? Have you changed so far? Okay. So the question is, do you believe you can change? And I think I did share on this yesterday. Do you believe you can change? Yeah, I did. During our addiction, with alcohol, drugs, and the associated behaviors, okay, many of us, regardless of what it is, if it was the gambler, if the one who shops all the time, the sex addict, the one who is a workaholic, whatever. So don't you think that we who have these afflictions, all human beings, so you just need to think about something that you do, you say, and you desire to change. you desire to change. But without that information of how you became that way, what attitudes, ideas, and behaviors help to formulate those views, huh? And then you go back into your history as to how many times you tried to change, right? So do you believe you can change, right? And so it's not a tricky question, okay? It's really a question, do you believe you can change? Do you believe you can change? It doesn't say, do I believe I can change me? Do you believe it's possible for you to change? Yes, it is. But I can't do the changing. I have to have the desire to change. I have to have the willingness to change. But I can't change. I don't have that power. All I have is thoughts about, I'm going to stop. I'm going to do this. I'm going to do that. To only go back to the same issue, the same problem. So how much changing can you do yourself? And that's what we got in touch with without drinking and drugging. Do you believe that people with the disease of alcoholism and drug addiction want to cause harm to their family? Do you believe that we wanted to stay out all night and spend all the money? Do you believe we wanted to prostitute, right? Do you believe we wanted to get raped? Do you believe we wanted to rob people? No, 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 no. But with the grip of the disease of addiction and alcoholism, that force, that power had control over us. We didn't do anything without that adversity's permission. We carried out every demand. And so the one who was calling the shots, those who were calling the changes, was not us. They used us. Huh? And so if that power that's operating in a negative way is deciding what and where and how, then guess what? That loving and caring God can provide the same possibilities, but from a spiritual, positive, and service-oriented way. All right? And so when it says, do you believe you can change? And the next question is, have you changed so far? Have I changed so far? Oh my God. Have I changed so far? As a result of learning and applying and practicing these 12 spiritual principles, as a result of doing step 6 in its entirety, yes, I have changed. The God that is within me, the God that created me, have changed me. I am still work in progress. I am stumbling forward, but He has changed me. My attitudes, ideas, and behaviors, my decisions, my actions have changed as a result of me practicing these 12 spiritual principles. But let me stop and hang a nail right there, as my pastor, Dr. Christopher Allen Bullock, would say. The one thing that doesn't change is God still allows us to exercise our own will. Now, I have been changed in that area too, because He refuses and won't take my self-will away. I recognize that I need God, but I want Him. So I want to practice aligning my will with his will as often, wherever, as I possibly can. That's what it says, and make that decision to turn our will and our lives over to the care of God as we understood him. Praying only for knowledge of his will for us and the power to carry it out. So if he did it and changed my life from drinking and drugging over 30 plus years ago, 31 years tomorrow, I have changed. My attitudes, ideas, and behaviors, actions, decisions are more based on a spiritual angle than dealing with it from a physical one. Yes. So I have changed as a result of these 12 spiritual principles. Okay? All right. So I shared with you that when I look at how I've changed as a result of these 12 steps, I am presently obtaining my doctorate in biblical studies just to learn more about the God who delivered me from underneath that parked car. I have a TV talk show for the past 28 years called Choosing a New Way of Life. Yes, I went back to school and graduated in 97 for my master's degree in human services, specializing in addiction and recovery. I write news articles. I write reports. I write commentaries, right, on addiction and recovery. Huh? I am even a model. I always wanted to be a model when I was growing up, but I was told I had buck teeth. My butt was too big. But God said, you're going to be a model, but you're going to be my kind of model. I'm an actress on stage, but guess what I'm playing the roles of? Addiction and recovery. So you see how what the enemy wanted to use for bad, God turned around and used it for good because he changed me. He changed me. I was 34 when underneath that parked car. Now I'm 65. And through being changed and seeing the change in my psyche, seeing the change in my spirit, right, that has manifested on this physical plane. It's because of the psychic change. It's because of the spiritual maturity that these accomplishments have been manifested on a physical level because God changed me. I wanted him to change me. I want to continue for him to change me, and more so with this COVID-19. I've been changed. I've been changed. I wear my mask. I wash my hands. I social distance. I do contact tracing, I get tested, and I've gotten the vaccine and waiting for my second. So I have changed. Yes. Psychic change can manifest through dealing with any and all physical conditions. Okay, so how have you changed? All right. So let's go and see what the next question is. All right. You enjoying this? Okay. All right. All right. So this is a good one. This is a good one, y'all. Okay. It says here, all right. Number 5. Are some of your character defects enjoyable because they give you pleasure? Huh? Are some of your character defects enjoyable because they give you pleasure? Huh? So let's think about it. What character defects give you pleasure? Do you like feeling a sense of superiority? Do you have that attitude of being better than? Mm-hmm. Do you feel as though you are above certain things? Do you feel you are entitled to what you want and what you want only? Are you so self-centered and selfish that you disregard everybody's needs? I'm talking about me. Now, and if the shoe fits you, then so be it. But I'm talking about me. I had to address those issues, those character defects that I seem to enjoy. So I always use myself as an example. And so when I was doing my 6th step, I had to answer these questions. I had to talk about those issues. I had to bring about those feelings of excitement that were brought about by character defects. Like I said, the word defect should be enough. Whether they feel good or not, they're defective. And I don't want nothing. Whether I like them, enjoy them or not, they are defective. They are defective to my character. No, I want to be entirely ready to have them removed. So ask yourself these questions. What character defects do you like that are enjoyable to you? Anger? Lust? Self-centeredness? Prideful? What are some of the character defects you enjoy? We have to be honest with ourselves. That's the only way we can get the help that's available. We have to be honest. So admit them, acknowledge them. You are aware of them. Now disclose them, reveal what has been concealed so that you can be set free. From recovery, emerge in power to give hope to others, help others prosper equally. All right, so let me see what I need to do because we did start a couple of minutes late. So let me be obedient. And once again, say to you, if it's God's will and if it's his decision that he breathed life into us tomorrow morning for day 80, wakes us up tomorrow morning for day 80, we will be reunited. In the meantime, go to Dr. Scott T. Allison article in Psychology Today of March the 31st. Extract Jason Waller's breaking down the steps, right, that we talked about. All right. We also want to encourage you to support our sponsors, right? And if you would like to be a sponsor, please join the ones who have joined us thus far, and we can, again, provide you the information as well of where they are, what they do, and I can help promote your business. So I want to thank, again, Crafty Crab, where I'm having my 31st anniversary meal here in Wilmington, Delaware, free to hope. From recovery, emerge empowered to give hope to others, help others prosper equally. Women Do Hall Transportation Services, Mr. C's Barbershop, my attire from Morgans of Delaware and Lady T at Morgans of Delaware, jewelry by Catherine Butler, and Divine Light, a treatment center and supportive housing for those suffering from the disease of addiction, alcoholism, and mental illness. So if you want to be a sponsor, please contact me with the information on the screen. Also, I want to again share with you how I got the vaccine. And I'm waiting for my second booster. I'm from Missouri. I'm transparent. I'm going to show you. I'm going to be that example and hopefully be an attraction for you to do the same thing. I tell you, boy, if it wasn't for the grace of God that we are here today, and we are here because he decided to wake us up this morning, knowing that others did not, will not, cannot wake up. He decided that we can start with ourselves to help others do the same thing and combating this COVID-19 by applying these simple suggestions of the 12-step program, thereby applying the CDC suggestions of washing our hands, social distancing, wearing a mask, contact tracing, getting tested, and getting vaccinated. If we do all these things, we will, we must stop the perpetuation of COVID-19. So again, until tomorrow, and it's God's will that we are rejoined, I ask you to be safe, and be safe. Make this a happy new day. And remember, What you do, what you decide can determine if you live or die.